Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. It's me, and I'm going to talk a bit about coping mechanisms. I'm on a new world for some reason. Um, I'm just here playing, but I'm going to talk a bit about coping mechanisms that I have. Now, just a fair warning, this is going to include both good and bad coping mechanisms, and there's a possibility that some things that I think's okay maybe not be as okay. So feel free to comment down below if you run across anything like that with me that's like, sis, that's actually not a good coping mechanism at all. And then I'll be like, oh, really? Great. I'll try to stop on that, or I won't advertise it as good. So just take what I say with a grain of salt. I just want to talk a bit about my own experiences, um, and my own, I guess, way that I deal with things, both the good and the bad. Because we like to keep it real here. And I know some channels are just like, oh no, everything's just great. And that causes some problems sometimes. Because I know a thing with the mental health community, you try as hard as you can to appear, I don't know how to say it, you want to try to appear as functioning as you possibly can. Um, but sometimes that doesn't always reflect on reality. And I feel like people have a pressure to be like the perfect mentally ill person and all of that when that doesn't exist. Um, and that's a bit of part of the problem with some of the representation in the community. I don't know which community I'm talking about, but you know what I mean. um, well, anyway, so some of the coping mechanisms I have, we're gonna start. Um, First, I'm gonna start off with saying that I one of the things that I do to cope is if I have my phone on me and I can access the internet, I usually go and I start a support session on a Discord mental health server. There's plenty that you could find. Some are better than others, some have their problems. But I usually go and I ask them if they can play word games with me. And I find word games to be extremely helpful, at least for me personally. It might not be the same for everybody, but I know on a logical sense that they're very good and very helpful for some people. Now, this might not be helpful for you, and like I said, this video isn't supposed to be like, I guess, that helpful. I mean, it is, but at the same time, I'm talking a bit about my experiences and some of these coping mechanisms that I have. I would not suggest anyone to do. I just want to keep it real here, you know? Because that's just kind of how I personally roll with things. Um, so yes. But I like to play word games. I know on the logical side of things, if you're freaking out, the same place where you're kind of anxious, um, like, okay, especially when I'm having intrusive thoughts. When I'm having intrusive thoughts, one of a good way to stop them is to use the same part of the brain and come up come up with words and stuff. So how word games work, I think you all know because you're part of the mental health community. But it's like, sorry, I I always struggle speaking. I think you guys can all tell that about me. But I just want to start this by saying, usually how it works is one person says a word, like apple, for instance, and my mind instantly thinks of the word tree, like apple tree. Other people, it might be applesauce, apple cider, just anything. Or maybe even a color, like apple is associated with red, so someone might say red. And the person might ask me to describe it. Sometimes, not after every word, I don't but sometimes they ask me like if I say like I don't know. I think you know what I'm trying to get at. Some words they're not just that something that you can describe, but if it's like apple tree, they might ask about like how tall is it? Um, what are the leaves like? Is it fall? Is it winter? You know, that kind of stuff. That might not make any sense to you, but it does to me. And then they go and they cycle through other words. Now the words are very safe words. They're not like anything like trigger warning just for the mention of a quick word really quick, like knives. Like if someone said knives, it probably wouldn't go well. But usually it's like safe kind of words, I guess. I don't know. Um, so that's what I do. I ask for help there and play word games. Um, I know it's really helpful for me. Another thing that I do, I here's an example of a bad coping mechanism. I think it's a bad coping mechanism. I've always heard that it was a bad coping mechanism, but obviously dissociation. Um, that's just something that's just kind of on instinct, I guess. Like, when in doubt, dissociate. I mean, I don't choose to. It's just something that happens. Um, Another thing that I do, for example, when I'm having a body memory PTSD episode, um, I usually get myself into like a bath and I take a bath and just like that takes away a lot of the body memory side of things. Now sometimes if it's really bad it doesn't help, but I know getting a bath's kind of soothing in a way. So that's what I do. I take a bath. So this prompts my family to ask me multiple times like, why are you getting so many baths? And and I'm just over here like, um, what do you mean? Why am I getting so many baths? Because I don't want to just be like, oh, I get a bath every time I have a PTSD episode, because that's awkward as hell. But that is a truth to it. I am questioned a lot about that. So, and it has its qualms when it's like if you're like supposed to be asleep or whatever, and you're just like taking a bath at like 3 a.m. and you're supposed to be asleep or something like, and when you're not home, this doesn't help all the time because obviously there's not like a bath at a restaurant or anything, or even a shower at a restaurant or anything, so it just gets kind of like a bit muddled, I guess you could say. I think that's where I'm trying to get at. Um, but I think you guys understand that kind of thing, where it's like, uh, not all coping mechanisms you have access to all the time. Okay, another example of a bad coping mechanism I have, I guess, is self harm. It's a coping mechanism, but it's a bad coping mechanism, and no one should do it. But it happens, and I totally get that. Um, I don't cut. I've never cut myself. It's weird because I've had urges to do that, but I've never have actually like did that. It's just not something that's me, I guess. Um, so yeah, that's something I have not done. Did I get these chests already? I might go around in circles in villages because that's what I do a lot. Um, but I do like, I guess just kind of like hit myself, especially when I'm frustrated with myself. And that's not good, and I do work on not doing that. It's just, with mental health issues, it's always, I guess, easier said than done, you know? But yeah, I don't recommend that to anybody. Another coping mechanism I have, I'm never sure if this is a good or a bad coping mechanism, but I like age regress, and it's not by choice. So it just kind of happens. Like when I get really stressed out, like after a PTSD episode, I go like really small, and I guess I don't know why. Comment down below if that's actually good or a bad thing that I do that. There's always a game of like, is this me age regressing, or like, is this like a cis kid influencing me? Yeah, it just gets kind of confusing with that, because there's always passive influence and stuff. And sometimes when I regress, it's actually not good. Because sometimes, like, I guess it kind of depends. Because if I'm still in the mix of something and I regress, sometimes it gets worse. Other times it gets like better. Like if it's like 20 minutes after I calmed down already and I'm age regressing, like that's fine. But sometimes if it's like I'm already like small or whatever, like then that's where it's like really I guess invasive on me. But yeah, sometimes like I don't know. I feel like it's weird because I guess I'm a bit of an age an age slider. Um, but I feel weird doing it in a way because it's like I I don't know. um, Another coping mechanism I have. I like to play games like Minecraft. Sometimes like if I'm stressed out, I'll go and I'll start up a world, and a peaceful world, and I'll go into like the Nether, and like mine Neverac. Like that's really weird, but I'll show you guys here. On my list, I have this anxiety never mining. So when I have anxiety, I just it's an older version, but you get the point. Um, I just go and I play on that. Uh, um, yeah, I think you guys understand maybe. Like I'll just go and I'll do like something repetitive like that where I'm just like, like breaking blocks and listening to the sound of the blocks breaking. Um, Another thing I do, um, I don't. I guess I could say grounding, but I don't really like think of grounding as something that I do. Um, Grounding, if you don't know, is like coming back from a state of like dissociation and other stuff. Oh, diamonds! Iron sword! This stuff's great. Okay. Um, I don't know. I don't need the other pair of boots, but I feel like bad for leaving them. I'll take the apple though. But okay. Sorry, I keep getting interrupted by my own game. But that is something that I deal with. Where it's like, uh, yeah. I think you know where I'm getting. Where it's like, oh yes, it to come back to reality, but I don't think of doing that. Like if I'm having some kind of anxiety or panic attack, I need somebody to tell me to ground myself or PTSD. Like it's not something that's instinct for me. Like oh yeah, I do this when I'm coping. Like if I ping a support session, they'll tell me like name five things you see here, whatever, and that's good. Like it works sometimes, but like it isn't something that I'd say that I use to cope with because I see coping as like how I respond to this kind of thing and not how it is like told to me. Um, but yeah, another thing I do is I kind of like logically talk myself through it, where that I don't get told to do, but I'll be like, okay, is this really as big of a deal that I think it is? Um, is this all right? Um, like, am I safe? Is there anything that will actually come after me? That kind of thing. I do that. Um, but yeah, like I've said, um, yes. Sorry, I'm really awkward. I know you guys can already tell that about me. That I'm a very awkward, like, person. I guess just kind of, I guess it's just kind of how I am. Just very awkward speaking. Um, oh, another thing I do, um, I like to journal or write things out. That's one thing that also I don't always have access to. Like if I don't have my phone or if I don't have a notebook with me, I don't have access to this, and that's like I guess sometimes frustrating in a way where it's like there's so many coping skills I have where it really depends on the situation, and sometimes I can't get to it. Um, crying. Crying is a coping mechanism I have, and most people they think crying's a bad thing, but crying's actually very healthy for you to do. It's a good way to release emotions and stress. I find it sick that our society teaches that crying's like some kind of bad thing when it's definitely not. That is one problem I have with how the world is, I guess you could say. Like crying is seen as bad or weak or something like that. Um, Another thing I do to cope is I count. I guess it's similar to the word thing. I just like count to 100, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and I just count. Sometimes I go by twos. I can't really go by threes. um, but I count by ones and twos. And I find that to be helpful. Another thing that I do is I often listen to music. That's a good coping mechanism. Sometimes it makes me feel worse though, where it's like I listen to the music in a way to like I, sometimes it makes me feel worse, especially if it's sad music. Sometimes sad music it's like it's great, it's good, but whatever. Another bad coping mechanism I have. I know this isn't followed by a bad coping mechanism, so singing music's really good. It's one of the best coping mechanisms you could probably have. But a bad coping mechanism I have is like controlling food, and that comes with you know, my old eating disorder. As you guys, I've said before that I'm recovered from eating disorder, um, and I plan to stay that way. Um, yeah. So that's one thing um, that I do, or I used to do, I guess you could say. Another thing that I do, um, so I really need to get better at making videos. I know this. I'm just starting to dissociate a little bit. Um, like normal, like like what am I not dissociating is sometimes the real question to ask myself. um, Another thing that I do is sometimes I just like watch YouTube videos. For example, I find a lot of Minecraft YouTubers to be very calming and comforting to me. Even if they're screaming, like they're still very comforting to me. And I'll just like, turn on one of their videos, like Skeppy. I absolutely adore Skeppy. Um, and it's interesting because he screams. You think he would stress me out because like he's a very loud person and I don't like noise, but I find his content to be a source of comfort, and maybe not everyone will, but I like to do that. Um, yeah. So those are the coping mechanisms I have. I'm definitely missing some. Um, but I figured I'd share like what I do, the good and the bad. Um, and yes. Um, but yeah, that's what I do. I don't draw or anything because I'm not good at art. I really the people that draw and they enjoy it, I find them to be incredible people because I wish I could use art like that, but I can't. Um, like it's just not something that's in my skill range. Um, but yeah. Oh, another thing I do is I talk to people. about it, or I just like join voice calls and talk to people, and just talk about random shit. Um, yeah. uh, um, yeah. So I think that's the end of this. I'm probably gonna keep playing because I'm actually kind of enjoying my progress here. But since I'm done talking, I'm gonna stop recording for now. And thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe and comment down below.